Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim Rochelles. Today's episode 258, and we're going to be interviewing Brandon. How you doing, Brandon?
Doing well. Excited to be here. Yeah.
So it's morning time. You're in Utah, you were just telling me.
Yeah. It's like 10 a.m. So yeah, we're getting a podcast in early this morning. It's great. Breakfast and
Awesome.
podcast.
All right, man, let's get started here. So like I was telling you before, let's talk about your childhood and growing up. How was that for you?
Yeah. I think one of the main reasons you probably asked this is because it's so common for us that have battled with substance abuse problems to have trauma in our childhood.
Yep. That's exactly
It's
the
so
reason for
common.
the question.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that we all, I guess I can't say all, but for majority of the people that I've worked with, it's pretty standard. We come with some type of major trauma. Mine was, nothing that happened to me specifically, but my mother passed away when I was just 7 years old. Um, that
Sorry to hear
was
that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. It's hard. I don't really remember. That's a long time ago for me. I'm 36 now. So to be, lived lots of my life without her, it's been one of those things that I had to work on. That was one of my traumatic experiences. That's what kept me using for a long time. I even had a period where, when I was on probation, like my father had to point it out to me. He's like, "Look, dude, you're going to jail within days of the time when your mother died or her birthday or whatever it is during this season. You're going to jail, even though if you had like 9 months clean, whatever." It's like, subconsciously, even, it wasn't something that I was meaning to do. Subconsciously, I'd start to freak out about that moment, of her birthday or her passing date or whatever it was. And yeah, I would end up slipping up and using and going to jail and the whole nine yards. But anyway, so back to my childhood though. I After that, my father remarried. I ended up having a huge family. I had, there was 8 of us living under one roof.
Eight.
Uh,
So what was it said? You had six brothers and sisters or seven?
uh, 7, yeah. Technically 8, but I one of them passed away before I was born, in fact. Um, but yeah, so it's crazy. I grew up in the jungle, just fighting for everything. You know what I mean? Fighting for food, fighting for money, for presents, attention, whatever it was. Fighting.
That's a big
Um,
family. That's a big. Your parents. That's a huge responsibility for them. That many kids. I can't imagine.
it's not a responsibility. It's crazy. Like, why would you do that to yourself? It's terrible. I love my kid. My one kid. Like, I could never do the big family thing, probably because I came from one. But yeah, it was a lot. After that, I didn't have a whole bunch of traumatic, different experiences or situations through my early adolescence. I did start using, as far as like marijuana and alcohol, around like 13. Um,
Who'd
I
you
just had
first use with?
family and friends. Yeah, I did have older siblings. I was one of the youngest, so I had older siblings that were dabbling as well. And so it just was one of those things that was acceptable but not acceptable. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
people in my life that I looked up to were doing it. I felt okay doing it at the time. Um,
Did
so
you
yeah,
enjoy it the first time? First time you smoked pot and drank, did you
yeah,
enjoy it?
loved it. Yeah, for sure, I did. I did. I loved it. I loved it for the first long time. You know what I mean? It was one of those things that, after I found it, it was what I was looking for at that time. You know what I mean? I had so many experiences, um, growing up, where I could find myself looking for something, and like, screaming at God at times, and wondering, why. When I was a little boy, I'd scream at him, pissed off why he took my mom, and just didn't understand things. And then, even growing up, I just felt that hole all the time. where nothing really filled it, but drugs totally did at first. You know, they got me through my teenage years, without doing anything really stupid. I know that sounds weird, but like I was ready to burn the world down at that point. You know, I was angry. Um, I've I didn't have the coping skills to get through that period of time. Other than that coping skill, I mean, that's really how I dealt with stuff, whether it was good, bad. You know, you've heard people talk about it before. That's how we cope. You know, if it's a celebration, we get high. If it's somebody's funeral, we get high. I mean, whatever it is, we find a reason to excuse the fact that that's why we're getting high. Um, but yeah, I started with I started with harder drugs when I was probably 15. And when I say harder, it's just pills.
What
Pills
kind of
through
pills?
Lortabs, Percocets. Um, yeah, I it got hard because I've had part of my story, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later too, is I have a long past with chronic pain. When I was really young, I have scoliosis, and I also have, I can't remember the exact term for it right now, but my spine also twists, not bends, but twists like a corkscrew, if that makes sense, just a
Yeah.
little bit, enough to pull everything in a weird way. Um, and so I was able to get those for like times after I would play sports. I would be really beat up. I was able to get that kind of thing if it wasn't from a doctor, it was from a family member. And I was in actual pain, but it was also one of those things where I was like, all right, cool. I really enjoy this one. This one's really great. You know what I mean? Um, that was my hook from the beginning, was the pills. Cannabis was never a huge addiction for me. I'd go with it, I'd go without it. I definitely wanted to be with it, but there was no problem going without. Pills were different. Pills, even before I was physically addicted, I wanted them all the time, you know, uh, all the time. Um, and again, another one of those things where I didn't know why that was, but that was the case. I just didn't want to feel the way I was feeling, you know. Um, yeah, that got me through high school. I mean, to go more in depth with my story, I how long do you typically do your podcast?
Oh, you got plenty of time. Don't worry.
Okay, all right. I just don't want to ramble too long, and I also think that I I mean, if there was a certain amount of time, I'd rather talk about the recovery side of things versus the addiction, because I feel like we all have similar stories, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like um, in certain ways we were either abused or we abused ourselves. Whether that was, I mean, there's 100 different ways that we torture ourselves, and I think that we all have, like I said, similar stories. We go through these periods of using, and we don't understand it, and we just beat the hell out of ourselves, um, and we eventually get to a point, hopefully, where we try recovery, right? And whether we get it the first time or not, it's still there. It's having it there in front of us. Um, and that's what I like. I said, I'd really rather spend time talking about is recovery, because I feel like my recovery's been way harder than my addiction, and you don't hear
Yeah.
people say a lot, right? Like I think people always say, "Oh, my best my best day high is worse than I don't even know the saying. I can't get it right every time I screw it up. But people always say, that's what it is. My worst day sober is better than my best day high. And I don't really buy that. I had some great times using it. If we didn't, we wouldn't have continued doing it, right? Like we wouldn't have continued after the first try or the second try, because at that point we weren't really addicted typically. Um, anyway, I mean, I got into hard drugs. I got into heroin. My back got worse and worse and worse. They wanted to do surgery after I got into a baseball accident in high school. Um, Basically, my nerves got crushed really bad by the discs in my lower back. And because they did, it was like I lost feeling to my legs. And I was not really able to walk. It sucked. But that was a traumatic experience for me. It started me down this path of real chronic pain. You know, when I was a kid, I could still play sports and do whatever. As I got into my 20s, that started to fade away. You know, I didn't feel like my other 20-year-old friends. They were able to get through like a game of softball or a day at the gym a lot better than I was. Um, and that was a lot of my story. I used a lot. I think during my 20s because of my pain. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with it. So I used a lot. I mean, I got hooked on IR 30s and Oxycontin 40s and 80s um, and then straight into heroin when I couldn't get those, when I lost my insurance and I couldn't get those pills anymore. It was within a day of being
Really?
out of them. Oh, within a day of being out of my, I knew a friend that was using, I knew that he had tried it. You know, he was somebody that I'd used pills with for a long time, years. And then I knew he kind of slipped away from that because I never heard from him anymore. He used to get them from me. Um, and I didn't hear from him for a while. Ended up finding out that's what he's doing. And yeah, I mean, it was 24 hours within me not having any pills. It was terrible.
It's such a common story that on the pills, and then next thing you
Yep.
know, you run out and you're right to heroin.
Yep, exactly. And that's, I think we all have a lot of that story in us, you know. Pain pills were thrown around like candy back then, you know, they just were. I was a kid in high school getting them. It was crazy. Um, but at that time I needed them, you know. Uh, that took me, I used, I had a lot of really bad experiences during my use, just like anybody else, especially anybody, if anybody's had the past of using heroin, I was IV user as well. I was IV user for 7 years, man. Um, it's just a lot of darkness. You know what I mean? It's just really dark. Um, I could talk about all the darkness for a long time. I don't love going back there, but I knew I'd have to today. It's just a lot of stories going in and out of detox. My family just being completely overthrown by this, worried, sick, or angry, or whatever it might have been at me. Um, I got myself lots of charges. I here's a to kind of lighten the mood for a minute. I guess the first experience I ever had with any type of law enforcement or getting in trouble, I was down in a national park here in Utah called Zion's National Park. Me and a bunch of friends, I was like 21. We were hiking through this area called the Narrows, and we were smoking pot and drinking. That's it. Like that was it. No, not even any psychedelics or anything like that. Just having a good time hiking through this area, backpacking, whatever. It was great. Um, like 2 in the morning, this I don't know what to call him, a tree cop and national park ranger came out of nowhere. Like we were clear in this backwoods place, and this guy comes out of nowhere. And for some reason targeted in on me. I ended up taking the charge for everybody that was there. I claimed I had more weed in my tent. He ended up getting it. Didn't arrest anybody else, but I not knowing that because I was on federal property, that it was going to be a federal charge.
Oh wow.
Um, like I thought for sure I was gonna, like I had plenty of friends that had marijuana possession charges, things like that. I thought I was going to be fine. a ticket, class A, whatever, and you're done. No, well, no, just wasn't the case. I got put on federal probation. I had a U.S. Marshal for a probation officer. Like they that was another thing. They took me off of my cannabis. I could no longer smoke because I was getting tested. But I did have pills. I had pills and I could abuse pills. Because they weren't testing my levels or anything like that. They weren't saying, hey, you can't use your pain pills. They just said you can't use pot. That's when I really became obsessively addicted. I mean, I had nothing else to cope with. That was warmth to me. That was it. Instead of taking them for the pain and once in a while goofing around with them, it was every day. So that sucks, and I think a lot of people can relate to that as well. It's one of those things, like if you get in trouble at all for one little thing, you're hooked in the system, and then it's really hard to get out. There's no reason to even try because there's so many hoops to jump through at that point. I stayed on probation. Yeah, I mean after sorry, let me fix my little camera here situation. After I got on probation, I somehow stayed on probation for like the next 7 years. It was terrible. Oh my God. I couldn't get off. I didn't know how. I'm telling you, I would go. I think the longest period I had was like 18 months, and I was so close at one point. And I was clean that period of time. It's the longest I ever had. I used one time, and it wasn't even fun. I didn't even really get high. And I got like after that one time, he threw me back in jail for 6 months. I had a terrible PO. There was I wasn't getting any type of help. I was just either getting avoided and not had so much like pressure on my back if I was doing well, or he was hounding on me and I was in trouble. But there was no, hey, or go to treatment or go to rehab. There was none of that, right? It took for me to finally get like real treatment. I stayed at a sober living house one time. That was terrible. I watched my first person overdose there. First out of very many, you know what I mean? Shit. Long story short, I kept using even after probation. I finally got a really bad DUI. I was on heroin and Xanax. There's no reason I should have been behind a car, the wheel of a car. I shouldn't have at all. I don't remember it whatsoever. All I remember realistically is I got in the car. I must have used, I don't remember this part, but I got in a very terrible wreck. I ran into 2 other cars. Thank God nobody was in them. They were parked. I was going.
Oh, sorry. I said same thing with me. I also I was drunk and I hit 2 parked cars, and thank God nobody was in them.
That's terrible though, right?
Yeah, like, I know.
Did you hit one after another? Or I hit one really fast, going like 50, and pushed it into another one. Like
I don't remember. I was so drunk, I was blacked out, so I don't remember.
I read the police report. I read his report. Was funny as hell. It's terrible, but like this is a funny story about like how bad we get in our addiction. I got in this wreck, right? And there was shit all over the car. I'm talking heroin, Xanax, syringes, and all this was all over the car. And I knew cops were going to be coming. I'm sure I don't remember this at all. Like I said, this is from police report. But when they got there, someone had been watching me. Someone saw me get in the wreck and got out of their car and watched me. And I went and hid. I took a whole bunch of balloons and went and hid them up under some other guy's car and waited for the cops to come in. Like, it was so stupid, man. I don't remember any of it. And I do remember them throwing me in an ambulance. I remember seeing my dad. Fuck, man. That almost makes me emotional now. Like I woke up in jail and that's what I remembered. Like for hours and hours while I was in the drunk tank, um, and not able to make a phone call or anything. I All I could remember was my dad at the end of this ambulance. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know, God, if I'd hurt somebody or killed someone. Uh, yeah, that sucked. My dad was, like I said, my mom passed away young. So my dad's like my rock. So having all of those disappointing moments where you just let the most important person at that point in my life down. How shitty, and we do that so much through our addiction, and it's sadly it's a repetitive behavior. We fuck up the people that are closest to us. Sorry,
No, it's
I
okay.
try not to swear, I guess, when I'm on a
You're good to
podcast or
go.
whatever. I don't know who's listening. I know, yeah, I figure as much. I just don't want to offend too many people,
No, you're fine,
because
brother.
I typically have a terrible mouth. I'm trying.
Yeah.
uh what else, man? I think
So
we
you
should
said
talk
you
recovery.
yeah, I was about to say, let's talk recovery. So what was the point where you said, I need to really change? Like, what was your rock bottom that you decided that you were going to get into recovery and take it
That
seriously?
was it. That was
That was
it
it?
right there.
Yeah.
That was it. I mean, it took one more try after that. But that was it really. I had, like I said, one big relapse after that where I, used for about a week, no, 2 weeks. To say a week would be a lie. Uh, it was like a 2 week long bender. I got put on drug court. That was really the thing that helped me a lot. Um, yeah, after that DUI, they said you're going to prison or you're going in drug court. Like that's your two choices. I went to drug court naturally, and it helped me a lot. It helped me because I had to go to treatment every single night for a week, or I mean, of the week, and that lasted for 6 months, and then dropped down to 3 nights, and so on, until I graduated. And like I said, I had one really big slip up. After I got into drug court, about halfway in. Um, but I got right back onto my program. It's not like I lost what I had during that time. Um, Give me one sec. So, yeah, I got into drug court. It was great. Gave me a lot of structure. Outside of that, um, I graduated drug court, and I was really involved with NA at the time. That was the first. I mean, NA saved my life. Really, if I would have kept going the way I was going, I was just done for. Um, and I did the whole 12 steps. I became a sponsor. I had a sponsor for a long time. And and then a couple of things happened that really cemented my recovery. In 2000, let me think for a sec, 17, I got a girl pregnant for the first time in my life. And I had the most wonderful, amazing little boy. uh God, dude. He's sorry, without him there's no recovery, there's no me, right?
Yeah.
uh I just wouldn't have kept going with it. I know I wouldn't have. I know I would have at least had another slip up or something worse. But I never wanted him to see that side of me. Holy shit. But it's night and day. I really am. I'm also bipolar and a Gemini, so I'm pretty up or down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm very uh when I'm down, I'm down. And when I'm out, it sucks, man. He doesn't need to see that. Um uh and then so I kind of skipped over this, and I wish I wouldn't have. Um During my using, I lost a lot of people that were close to me. Uh There, so many friends, a lot of friends, guys, girls, but a lot of like, I don't know if you call them best friends. I call them chosen brothers. You know what I mean? People
Yeah.
that you just click with, and I mean, dude saved my life at one point. His name is Trevor Cambray. He's the reason we started Addicts We Stand, which is now my nonprofit. That's probably we're probably not going to be a nonprofit anymore. Anyway, uh, this gentleman passed away. It was 3 months after my son was born. I lost. Well, he's the 23rd person that I know that I've been close with that died from overdose. But like really like the third or fourth really dear friend of mine, you know. After he passed away, we started Addicted We Stand, which is now a Facebook page that has like 26,000 people. That cemented it for me. We were doing a lot of stuff during the first couple of years, first 3 years probably. We were super active. Our volunteers were super active with our online community. I was doing Facebook lives every week or so. And I just knew I couldn't do that. I didn't have, I had a lot of people keeping me accountable at that point in time. And I think that's huge for us in recovery, right? If we're going to talk recovery, accountability is huge. I loved it. It gave me an opportunity to vent about the bullshit I was going through on these live feeds. And I found out, you know, after doing a couple, and not typically at that point, not really like bitching about my stuff, but after talking about real life shit on these live feeds and getting some response with comments and things like that. God, where was I going with that? Sorry, my train of thought just left.
That's okay.
Oh, anyway, it was keeping me accountable. I was doing a lot of live feeds. I wanted to interact with the community. I didn't want to be gone. I mean, long story short, um, uh, we had a wild run the first few years. Um, I mean, that's been a huge part of my recovery. If we're going to talk shop, that's it, man. I mean, Addicted We Stand put me in the middle of a lot of different circles. It gave me the opportunity to see recovery for what I believe it truly is. It's so much more than 12 steps. It's so much more than NA. It's so much bigger than that, you know. I know that a lot of people, oops, lost you. Sorry, man. Uh, I, I just know a lot of people base their recovery around, you know, one certain thing that they've learned without really seeing how other people do recovery differently. You know, people that get set in their ways and they keep going to the same meetings or hanging out with the same people all the time, you're going to get the same responses. You're going to get the same stories. You're going to get the same outlooks on recovery. Once I got into Addicted We Stand, and I mean, man, within 3 months when we started, there was a lot going on here in Utah. When we started it, there was a lot going. We needed an online platform, obviously. I mean, it blew within 3 months. We had like 7,000 people at our 6 month mark. We had 10,000 members, and it just kept growing. We needed it here. Most of our 26,000 people, I would say 20,000 at least, are well, probably 20,000 are based here in Utah. The rest spread out all over, like yourself.
Yeah.
Um, how did you? I'm curious as how you became a member. Actually, that's interesting.
Of your group?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure I just found it, looked around a little bit, like what I saw and joined.
Weird. All right, cool. Yeah, I like it. Um, it's so hard right now with our members and adding new people. Like, I just let me bitch really quick. Facebook sucks, man. Facebook has been for a long time. It didn't allow all these spammers and things like that to try to join our group. Well, now it's a bunch of bullshit, and um, anybody and their dogs, all these people from all over in different countries, and I'm sure a lot of spam bots like try to join the group. We have volunteers that have to like moderate and decipher through this shit now. It's such garbage. It was so much easier back in the golden days, really,
Yeah.
when we first started. Anyway, yeah, I mean, recovery is that's recovery's huge, man. Um, there's so much, and there's so many different ways to recover. Um, it's so sad that there's all these different stats, like 3% of heroin addicts get off heroin, or 9% of people uh, get help and the rest of them don't, or something like that. Maybe it's 11% that get offered treatment in their lifetime, and the rest don't. Like, that's a stat, and that's sad, man, because that's not the only way to recover. Like, I feel like there's so many other ways for people to get their shit together and do life right. um I've just seen it all. I've seen abstinence work for thousands of people. I've also seen medically assisted treatment, or MAT, helping just as many. People that are on Suboxone or methadone, or medical cannabis is huge right now. You know what I mean? And I don't know what your opinions are on those things, but if they're there, use them, right? They're tools. They don't have to be your whole recovery, but they are definitely tools that should be used. Um,
Yeah, no, I'm all for harm reduction. I mean, like you said, I
yep,
mean, someone tells me they're going to take methadone and it's going to give them their life back and they can get a job and they could take
right,
care of their children and family and be a
right,
productive member of society. Why wouldn't you want someone to take that?
for sure,
You know?
for sure. It's yeah, it's stupid. Like, it's I'm sorry, but it's it's asinine to not want people to use those tools. I myself use tools. Just I don't know if I need to get into exactly what my medically assisted treatment plan looks like, but I've had two major back surgeries, Kay, both done in 2020. They were extensive. I have a disc taken out of my neck right here, and I have a metal plate that's got 4 screws bolted into my vertebrae. I have another 6 titanium screws, big ones, that go through my lower back, with a couple of metal rods up each side. And sadly, I'm gonna have to go in for another one this year. It sucks. Um, and that's what I mentioned earlier when I was in NA. That was hard to say. Um, it wouldn't have lasted for me. I went 2 years completely abstinent, right? Like I did. I 2.5 years, something like that. Um, I white knuckled the shit out of it. Like, it helped me. It saved my life, but I still didn't know how to live, right? Like, I was not living yet because so much of me was trying to moderate my pain with, these other approaches that weren't working. With the way my back is, it just wasn't working, right? Um, it took me a long time, and then even on AWS, like, I could look back in my history and watch live feeds for days. I've gone through a lot of different treatment plans for myself. I consider myself 7 years. 7 years. This the 27th of this month, I'll have 7 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a
And
long
and
time.
that's it's a long time. It's too for me. It's huge. It's a long time. It's epic proportions coming from where I was. I was just as bad a junkie, if you want to call it that, as any. Stole from my parent, did all kinds of shitty things to a lot of people I loved, hurt lots of people. Um, but once I got into recovery, like I said, I did the absent thing. I had to use some type of substance that was stronger than what I was doing. The reality of it was I needed something to keep me going. So I tried like every form of Suboxone. I tried I tried the patch. I tried the pill, I tried the strip, I all of it, the shot even. Um, I didn't love it. I didn't love it. Um, I ended up doing medical cannabis, which I still sparingly use right now. I still consider myself 7 years clean. I'm not robbing from
Absolutely.
people. Yeah, I'm not robbing from people. I'm not doing all those other things. I use cannabis to help me when I'm hurting. And the shit thing about me even talking about that is I'm on all these other mental health drugs um, because I am bipolar. And I went unmedicated for that for so long. Mental health is so important. It just really is. Without the two coming together and me actually going to a psychiatrist, which is hard to admit, and going through those hard steps and like, I mean, man, I went on and off medications because we couldn't find the right fit for me, and I'm still not there to get completely like leveled out where I'm not having these really high highs because like yeah, growing up, I wondered what the hell was wrong with me or if everybody felt this way, but I get um almost euphoric when I'm manic and I don't sleep a lot. Like right now, I'm talking a whole lot. Like there's when I'm down and out, I don't talk a whole lot. I have a harder time getting my words out. I don't feel like myself when I'm really like depressed and my mood is just really shit. I get angry. But when I'm manic and I'm going like this and I'm able to talk and be long winded as I am, uh, I get euphoric almost. You know, I feel more like me, and so I'm not feeling those down and outs. I'm feeling up and better. And so I'm trying to find a regulated area for that right now. And so it's really hard because I talked about having to use cannabis and the harm reduction there. Um, but really, the mental health drugs I'm on are they're just God, they suck. They're hard. They have a lot more side effects. They have um, different interactions with all the different mental health drugs I have to take, sadly. Um, and so cannabis is actually the most least harmful drug that I take.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's
I mean, I
still
say to people, like, if it was my daughter and you gave me a choice of giving her something that was made in a laboratory versus something that you pick out of the ground, obviously I'm going to pick
right,
the fresh, picked herb out of the
of
ground.
course.
I mean, but I'm bipolar also, so I know you're talking about taking pills. I'm not against pills because I have to take them
Oh,
also to keep myself going.
right.
I know how,
Damn, dude, that's hard. It's hard. How did you know you're bipolar growing up, or did you get diagnosed later on in life?
I got diagnosed when I was around 25, but growing up, I knew I was different. I felt
Right.
different. I was like, I'm not like everyone else.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, I get that. That's exactly how I felt. Um, and it sucks, man. That's hard because you don't know. I mean, those are huge reasons to try to cope with other things, right?
Yep.
Um, when you're not feeling like yourself and you feel like other people are different than you are. God, I'm really having a hard time with my camera right now. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Um, but yeah, when you're not feeling like yourself, you're gonna reach out for different things, and especially if you have bad influences around or whatever it is, you're gonna find the wrong thing eventually. Um, that's crazy. Yeah. Do you feel crazy at times when you're
Oh yeah. Sometimes you
like you
feel like you're
do,
going
right?
crazy. Yeah.
I hate it, man. I'm like right now. Uh, it's really hard, dude. Having a and I, dude, I know there's. I'm grateful for my situation. I know there is a lot worse places that I could be in the world or in life, um, but it's hard for me to manage both my physical illness and handicap. Really, I have because of some medical procedures that I had happen. I have a dead nerve that's all the way down my leg. I have to walk with a cane. Uh, but balancing those two things, the physical health and the mental health, is so hard, man. Because if my physical health is shit, my mental health is shit. And if both of those are shit, then I'm going in this downward cycle where I've kind of been the last couple of years, to be honest with you. Um, yeah, like you say, mental health's a motherfucker. It just is. I had something happen to a family member. I don't want to go into details of any of that, but I had something happen that was super traumatic in the last couple of years. And when it happened, it sent me down one of those really down, very low lows. Um, but this time I like didn't get out of it. Like I had lots of those before where I have short periods of being really down and out and low, whatever. But this was years, literally. I feel better today than I've felt in years, and we're working on it right now. Like I said, we're still trying to find the exact right fit for me. But there was 2 years, like I say, that I've been really segregated from my community. I mean, Addiction We Stand was everything to me. It's not so much right now. I hate admitting that, but like I had so much bullshit happen in my life all at once. My dad had cancer, um, show up all of a sudden that was really bad. It almost took his life multiple times. I'm living with him right now to try to do my best to help, and I had to stay with him in the hospital for lots of nights. And then this other bullshit happened with a family member. It was my son. I don't. It was fucking terrible, and I like I said, I couldn't climb out of this pit that I was in. It's taken a lot, and like I said, I'm still climbing. That's why I wanted to do your podcast. When I saw you post on the page, I just really needed to get back to things that I was doing before. Um, I talked a little bit earlier about venting on my page and being able to talk, and I had a train of thought going at one point. But one of the reasons I did that is because when I do that, people reach back out. One of our major functions that Addicted We Stand does is we help people get into treatment. My volunteers help people get onto insurance and Medicaid if they have to, and then find the right treatment centers that are in network and all those things. And we've been doing this 5 years now, 5 years. Um, Thousands of people, my volunteers and myself, have put into treatment. Um, and what I found out was when I talk about my own struggles, it's way more likely for people to then reach out to me and to talk about theirs. And then in turn, it's way more likely for those people to ask for help. Um, to see me going through something and know that they're in a similar situation, I've found has been huge for me to connect with the community that I've been building and trying to build for 5 years. Um,
Well, it sounds like you're doing good so far.
Fuck, not the last couple of years, man. I've
Well,
I've fallen off, man. I used to have this really tight connection. I mean, I could do a live feed and have thousands of people view it within a couple of days. Um, I maybe get a couple hundred right now, just because I haven't been on the page. Like I went through all this bullshit and I literally just kept putting my phone down because, you know, normally I'd have multiple people be hitting me up during the day, either wanting treatment or just to talk about their recovery or whatever it was. And I had a great connection, which is huge. We talk about recovery is all about connection, right? Well, yeah, man. The connection I found with Addicted We Stand is phenomenal. And it sucks because the last couple of years I lost that. I completely lost it. And it's going to take a lot of work for me to get that back if I want it. And I do. I want that. I just want it differently. I was really terrible at not giving away all of myself. I I didn't know how to not be selfish when I was in addiction. I mean, it was really fucking bad. Like everyone has their own form of selfishness. Mine was terrible. I'm sure everyone else's is as well. God, I was a prick though. I was a prick. I took from everybody, take. And then I got into recovery and I got this awesome opportunity to be of service. We didn't know AWS was going to blow up. We started a Facebook page. That was it. And like I said, within months we had thousands of people. So we did the nonprofit route. I've had somebody hand me a check for 25 grand. I didn't even know this person, just to help people. You know what I mean? I've seen some beautiful shit, man. Beautiful shit. The car I drive was given to me because uh, because I wasn't making money. I was given everything I had for Addicted We Stand, just fucking night and day, man. But I wasn't working. I couldn't hold a job and do all that at the same time and try to build a nonprofit, but nonprofit is non-profitable for the most part. There's nonprofits that do great, but we were starting and it was fucking hard. But because of the mindset change that I had, of going from being a taker to wanting to give everything I had, I saw some really amazing things. I saw people get recovery. I saw treatment centers give scholarships to people because they wanted to help. There's a lot of terrible treatment centers out there. Terrible. I've been in the industry a long time, and so many of them are just there to make a dollar. And not necessarily the staff is all the time, but owners and such, partners of treatment. I've seen the ugly side of recovery too, really ugly. But I've also, like I was talking about, I've seen some really beautiful shit, man. Sorry about the sniffle as well. I have allergies here in Utah. It's pretty
Oh, no
terrible right
worries.
now.
Don't
I
worry
like
about it.
literally was dousing myself with all kinds of no stuff. I do taking it sucks. Like I'm
So
trying.
we're getting towards the end here. I want to ask you
Yeah,
one last question.
of
So
course.
you've already given a bunch, but do you have any additional advice for people that are watching and listening?
Um, my advice is handle your shit. Here's the thing: recovery's fucking hard. The recovery that I'm doing today is it's the life I'm living today, and life recovery, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're doing is life recovery. It's the same fucking thing. Um, it's way hard. You don't get to cop out and not do shit you need to. You got to handle your shit today. You got to step up and handle your shit. And I'm not just talking about, your recovery, I'm talking about your mental health, your jobs, your physical health. All of that has to be together because your life has to be worth living if you're going to stay in recovery. You need to find shit that you like to do. You need to find hobbies, even. I don't give a shit what it is. If you have an interest, go get really interested in that for as long as you can, because it's gonna keep your mind busy. Recovery's fucking hard. Handle your shit. Yeah.
Nice and simple.
Yep.
No,
That's it, man.
I agree. It is really difficult. I want to thank you for coming on the
Yeah.
podcast today. How do you feel?
I love it, man. I appreciate you. I know I ramble and I apologize. Like I can go off and lose my train of thought 14 times, but hopefully I got at least somebody that I can connect with today. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate the opportunity. If not anybody else, you, my friend, you know, um, it's always nice to meet somebody else that has similar struggles, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not
It
alone.
it is, man. So thank you for letting me come on. Thanks for letting me get to know you a little bit. Sorry I talked way more. I was planning on having a conversation. I
No, this
mostly
was great. I think it was a great interview.
okay. All right,
You
cool,
told
man.
your story. You told your story great. I didn't have to ask too many questions because you were telling it so well.
I've done it a few times. I'm glad to be back on though. Yeah, thank you. It's nice to get back. I think that's one more thing. If you can share your story with anybody, I don't care if it's one person or thousands of people, share your story. Um, People can relate, and you getting shit off your chest is always going to help. Don't hold shit in, you know?
Yeah. All right, my friend. So do me a favor and sit tight for just a moment.
For sure.
And for everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also, subscribe to see when we upload new videos. You can check us out on all social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, you name it, we're on it. I also suggest checking out our website, which is www.addicts-anonymous.com. There's plenty of free resources as well as free literature. And the last thing is our book is finally out. It's called Addicts Anonymous, Our Stories. It's a collection of different topics that I write about, as well as a collection of people's personal stories of addiction and recovery. It's available on Amazon and Kindle right now. And in the future, it will be available at Walmart and Target and Barnes and Nobles and things like that. So once again, it's called Addicts Anonymous, Our Stories. I hope you could check it out. That's all we have for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time.